I went to the school to conduct an investigation and stopped by the cafeteria for lunch. I saw a male student who had only gotten free soup, so I casually got him a lunch. Someone nearby whispered, "Isn't that our school's top student? How dare that girl talk to him?" Before I could think much of it, a female teacher had already rushed over and slapped me across the face. "What class are you in? You little slut. How dare you seduce my son?" The male student panicked, grabbing her arm and shouting, "Mom, it's not what you think." The female teacher shook him off and grabbed my wrist. "Come on, we're going to see the principal." I had no choice but to explain. "You've misunderstood. I'm a staff member from the State Department of Education." She scoffed. "State Department of Education? At your age, you dare to lie? Let's go." But I just have a baby face. When I was dragged into Principal Zachary Thorne's office, she was still yelling, "Mr. Thorne, my son is our top student. How dare she seduce him? A student like this must be expelled." He turned to me, his tone stern. "What class are you in? Give me your parents' phone number. You're expelled." I smiled. "I dare to give it to you, but I'm afraid you won't dare to call." I went to the school to conduct an investigation and stopped by the cafeteria for lunch. I saw a male student who had only gotten free soup, so I casually got him a lunch. Someone nearby whispered, "Isn't that our school's top student? How dare that girl talk to him?" Before I could think much of it, a female teacher had already rushed over and slapped me across the face. "What class are you in? You little slut. How dare you seduce my son?" The male student panicked, grabbing her arm and shouting, "Mom, it's not what you think." The female teacher shook him off and grabbed my wrist. "Come on, we're going to see the principal." I had no choice but to explain. "You've misunderstood. I'm a staff member from the State Department of Education." She scoffed. "State Department of Education? At your age, you dare to lie? Let's go." But I just have a baby face. When I was dragged into Principal Zachary Thorne's office, she was still yelling, "Mr. Thorne, my son is our top student. How dare she seduce him? A student like this must be expelled." He turned to me, his tone stern. "What class are you in? Give me your parents' phone number. You're expelled." I smiled. "I dare to give it to you, but I'm afraid you won't dare to call." Zachary Thorne was caught off guard by my response and froze for a moment. That teacher named Rebecca Foster jumped up beside him. "Mr. Thorne, look at her attitude. This shameless thing should be severely punished." I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my reddened wrist where she'd grabbed me. "Stop talking and make the call." Zachary Thorne rose to the challenge and picked up the desk phone. "What's the number?" I rattled off a string of digits. He dialed, pressed the speakerphone, and said arrogantly, "Hello, I'm Mr. Zachary Thorne from Ivy Ridge High School. Are you the student's parent? Your child has been seducing male students at school. Please come immediately." There was a 2-second silence on the other end. Then a voice came through, clearly confused. "What? What are you saying?" "Who?" Zachary Thorne repeated. "Your daughter has been seducing male students at school. Please come to the school immediately to handle this." Silence again on the other end. I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. If Mr. Thorne knew who was on the other end, he'd probably wet his pants already. Too bad he didn't know. He was still standing there arrogantly, waiting for my parent to come and apologize to him. "Mr. Thorne?" The voice on the other end became strange. "Are you certain you're talking about my daughter?" "Of course I'm certain." Zachary Thorne was getting impatient. "Are you coming or not?" The other side said, "I'll be right there." "Mr. Thorne, until I arrive, no one is to lay a finger on her." The phone hung up. Mr. Thorne held the receiver and snorted. "Pretty arrogant." Rebecca Foster came over. "What happened? What was their attitude?" "Said they'll be right here." Zachary Thorne put down the receiver. "Told me not to touch her." Rebecca Foster's eyes rolled, and she suddenly became excited. "Mr. Thorne, I have an idea. Let's call a school-wide assembly and make this little vixen apologize in front of everyone. Make an example of her so all those girls with improper thoughts can see." Zachary Thorne hesitated. "Is that really necessary? Why wouldn't it be?" Rebecca Foster's voice was shrill. "My son ranked first in the entire city exam. He's our school's star student. If we don't deal with this kind of vixen, anyone will be able to seduce him in the future." Zachary Thorne nodded and was about to speak when Rebecca Foster reached out to grab my hair. I seized her wrist in one motion and twisted hard. She cried out in pain, her face going pale. "I can walk on my own." I released her hand and looked at her calmly. Rebecca Foster clutched her wrist. I stared her down until she retreated half a step, swallowing back the curses that had been on her lips. She hadn't expected me to fight back, much less expected my strength. In the hallway, she walked ahead of me, constantly turning back to glare, her mouth far from clean. "Shameless thing, little vixen, born cheap." I stopped walking. She stopped too, watching me warily. "Watch your mouth." My voice wasn't loud, but she was scared enough to retreat half a step, her lips trembling twice, ultimately not daring to curse again. Zachary Thorne urged from behind, "Hurry up, hurry up. Everyone's waiting at the field." On the field, over 2,000 students were already lined up by class, a sea of people, all whispering among themselves. Rebecca Foster pushed me onto the stage, using vicious force, trying to make me stumble, but I stood firmly without even swaying. Disappointment flashed across her face. Zachary Thorne walked to the microphone and cleared his throat. "Today, we're holding an emergency school-wide assembly." The field fell quiet. "This girl," he pointed at my nose, "seduced our school's top student, Ethan Carter, in the cafeteria." The crowd below instantly erupted, students whispering to each other. Rebecca Foster snatched the microphone. "Ethan Carter is my son, ranked first in the entire city. He's our school's pride. He's Ivy League material." She turned to me, her finger nearly poking my face. "There have been several little vixens like this before. They just want to ruin my son, ruin the school's hope. What are they? Do they even deserve to talk to my son?" Zachary Thorne took the microphone, his tone softening, putting on a magnanimous appearance. If you apologize publicly and write a guarantee letter, and if your attitude is good, I can consider not expelling you. Looking at his hypocritical face, I couldn't help but laugh. You haven't even figured out who I am, and you dare demand an apology? Rebecca Foster exploded. Who are you? Who could you be? You're just a shameless little slut. She got angrier and rushed forward to slap me. I dodged sideways. Her slap missed, her center of gravity unstable. She staggered 2 steps and nearly tumbled headfirst off the stage. Laughter erupted from below. Rebecca Foster's face turned crimson. What are you laughing at? She yelled at the crowd below, then suddenly turned to me, her eyes full of madness. She pulled out a red marker from her pocket and unscrewed the cap. You think you're so tough? You think you can dodge? She advanced toward me with the marker raised. I'm going to write Vixen on your face. I'll make it so you can never wash it off. Let the whole school see what kind of person you are. The laughter below stopped abruptly. People gasped. Some shouted that this was too much. Just as Rebecca Foster's marker was about to touch my cheek, I kicked her to the ground. Rebecca Foster screamed in pain, her face going pale. With my other hand, I pulled out my work ID from my pocket and held it in front of her eyes. See it clearly now? She squinted and leaned closer to look, her eyes suddenly widening. The work ID clearly read, State Department of Education Deputy Director Lydia Monroe. Her lips trembled, her face instantly turning deathly pale. I let go. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed on the ground. I turned to face the over 2,000 students below, holding my work ID high, my voice clear. I am the Deputy Director of the State Department of Education, Lydia Monroe. Complete silence fell over the field. Zachary Thorne was stunned for 3 seconds, then he laughed out loud. You think we're 3-year-old? Rebecca Foster instantly got her energy back. Right. That work ID must be fake. Zachary Thorne sneered, looking me up and down. State Department of Education Deputy Director? How old are you? You look like a teenager. What kind of leader are you pretending to be? Rebecca Foster leaned close to my work ID, shaking her head. The counterfeiting technology these days is really amazing. It looks quite authentic. If I hadn't seen the real thing, I might have been fooled by you. Zachary Thorne shouted to the crowd below. Check which class this Lydia Monroe is in. The dean of students pulled out a roster and flipped through it, then looked up. Mr. Thorne, I've checked. There's no such person. Rebecca Foster pointed at my nose, her voice shrill. I know now. You're a little slut who snuck in from outside the school. She got more and more worked up, her voice getting louder. You must be from that poor high school nearby. You snuck into our school to seduce boys. I've seen plenty of social scum like you. The students below began to stir. Some whispered to each other, some craned their necks to look at me, and some frowned. But Rebecca Foster didn't care about any of that. She got more and more excited. Look at her, dressed all proper, but she's actually just a delinquent, forging work credentials, sneaking into a top high school, specifically targeting good students. She turned and shouted at the crowd. Security. Where did all the security go? Restrain this little slut. The security chief ran onto the stage with 2 guards. The 3 stood beside me but didn't make a move, probably because they'd seen me kick Rebecca Foster earlier and weren't confident. Rebecca Foster leaned close to Zachary Thorne's ear, deliberately raising her voice several levels. Mr. Thorne, this kind of social scum, forging credentials, sneaking into school, seducing our top student. Call the police. We must call the police. Send her to juvie. Zachary Thorne nodded, pointing at me with an air of righteousness. Who are you really? If you don't tell the truth, I'm calling the police right now. I looked at him calmly, enunciating each word. I told you, I'm the Deputy Director of the State Department of Education. Rebecca Foster scoffed. Still lying? You're a teenage girl. How could you possibly be a deputy director? Look at yourself. Do you look like an adult? Zachary Thorne joined in with a cold laugh, looking me up and down. Right? Which deputy director comes to a school alone, without even a driver? Without any staff? Who are you trying to fool? Rebecca Foster continued. Call the police. We must call the police. This kind of little slut is a cancer on society. She should go to juvie for proper education. Zachary Thorne pulled out his phone and dialed 911 in front of over 2,000 people. Hello, 911? I'm Mr. Zachary Thorne from Ivy Ridge High School. We've caught someone forging State Department of Education credentials, sneaking into school to seduce boys, seriously disrupting the educational order. Yes, please dispatch officers immediately. He hung up, crossed his arms over his chest, and looked at me triumphantly. Rebecca Foster put her hands on her hips, arrogant. Just wait. When the police arrive, you'll be crying. Forging state official credentials. That's enough to keep you busy. She turned to the crowd below, shouting at the over 2,000 students. Everyone look. This is what happens when you seduce top students. If anyone else has such improper thoughts in the future, this is your example. I stood on stage, a smile playing at my lips, saying nothing. Rebecca Foster saw me smiling and got even angrier, rushing up to me. You're still smiling? Let's see if you can still smile when you're at the police station. Zachary Thorne also came over, his voice threatening. Forging state official credentials. That's at least 2 or 3 years in prison. Little girl, your life is over. I looked at him sarcastically. Oh, I'm so scared. But Rebecca Foster thought I was actually scared, her voice even shriller. What? Scared now? Too late. You were so arrogant earlier, weren't you? Now you know to be afraid. I nodded. Fine, then let's wait. Sirens sounded in the distance. Rebecca Foster jumped with excitement, pointing at the school gate and shouting at me. Hear that? The police are here. You're done. Zachary Thorne straightened his tie, stood up straight, ready to greet the police. A black sedan and 3 police patrol cars drove through the school gate. Rebecca Foster pointed at the gate, shouting at me. See that? They're all here to arrest you. I crossed my arms over my chest, the smile never leaving my face. The person who stepped out of the black sedan was State Department of Education Director Nathan Brooks. His face was dark as iron, radiating a low pressure, followed by city police station officers and a team of police. Rebecca Foster pointed at me, shouting at the officers. Officers, it's her. It's this little slut from outside the school. She forged State Department of Education credentials and snuck into our school to seduce my son. Arrest her. her quickly. Director Brooks didn't look at her. He walked straight onto the stage. He walked up to me and looked me over to confirm I was unharmed before speaking. Ms. Monroe is our State Department of Education's deputy director. Who's been giving her trouble? Complete silence fell over the field. Rebecca Foster's finger, pointing at me, froze in midair. You said she's what?